Please do.
Welcome, Carol. Thank you so much for being here. As a quick introduction to Carol, she is the Vice President of Information Technology at NHL. And she's also a member of the NHL, National Hockey League Innovation Team, and she works with their largest partners to introduce new state-of-the-art in-game technology. Carol was also the co-president of Women ERG. I met her at ACIO conference where she, along with a couple of other power ladies, was talking about something similar, and I really had to ask her if she would come and speak with us also. So thank you so much for accepting the invitation. Thank you so much for making the time, and thank you so much for a wonderful Monday morning start. So just to get going, can you tell
Sure.
us a little bit about your journey? Because it's most exciting. I mean, you've worked in different areas, how did you start in the technology field? If you can tell us a little bit about that. Yeah.
Oh gosh, I'd have to say that I never thought that I wasn't going to be in some kind of a technical role. Even when I was young, I really gravitated towards the STEM fields, and we didn't call it STEM way back then. It was just math, science, whatever discipline it was. I thrived, and it just made sense to me. The logic of it all, and having really strong teachers and the people that never questioned being a woman versus being in STEM, right? Which was fantastic. My parents never said, "Oh, you." I mean, believe me, I had dolls. I learned how to do my hair and make, all of those the traditional women kind of type of roles, cooking, whatever. But they never said, "Why are you doing all that math?" or "Why are you doing all that science?" It was more just, okay, great. Seems like you're good at it. Then keep going. And I never had teachers that or professors that discouraged me from what I was doing. And to be candid, I think in when I was in at university that I it was actually a little easier for me to get time with professors, I felt, because I was a woman and they were very helpful, to be candid, and they wanted me to succeed, which was great. So I got out of school and I actually so I have an electrical engineering degree, and I worked for a small induction heating company. And that means that um, uh, using coils, metal coils, to heat metals going through those metal coils. So when you put a current through or a voltage through those metal coils, then it creates a current in between, and then it heats up whatever is inside if it's metallic. And so I worked for that induction heating company in a sales capacity. And I just felt like I I don't want to work with my hands like that. It was more the process side, and I was in the sales department, so I was more in that kind of a role. But then I went to American Express and in New York City, which opened up a lot of doors, which was great. And my role there was to create a technical service desk and a for a very specific user base. And then my role turned into being an email administrator for American Express. And we used, I'm really going to date myself here, Sanjita, CC Mail and Lotus Notes. And one of the consultants that was doing work for marketing within American Express, they they saw that I was pretty good at that platform, and they absorbed me into the marketing department absorbed me in, because I not only understood the business, but I understood the technology as well, which was really starting to fine tune my role. And eventually I went to work for that consulting company, and then the consulting company was contacted by the National Hockey League to do some work and for them, whereas IBM was a huge partner of theirs at the time. And I
Right.
actually put the first statistics online way back when,
Oh,
which was
wow.
pretty interesting. We had a we called it an AS400 back then, and it morphed into I5, and I'm not quite sure what they're calling it now, but all of our stats are there, and I was pretty good at developing web interfaces for notes applications. So I grabbed the data from the AI5 and I published it on the web. And at the time, it was really very cutting edge work. Um, so I was lucky enough to expand my role at the NHL with being a consultant, but they must have liked me because they hired me on full time in 2000. So I have been so blessed to be able to work with so many different business units and have that role of really getting the intersection of technology and the business, and that's only grown more and more.
That's great. So just going back to the right at the beginning where you said, your parents never said anything and they just encouraged whatever you wanted to. Same with your teachers and professors. Um, just a very typical thing that we see in movies and TV and things that, we've heard, because I did not do schooling over here. I only came here for my master's, is typically you will see kids in school, and then if you are really into math and science, they're like, oh, you are a nerd. And especially if it's a girl, it almost seems sometimes that girls will try to dumb themselves down because they don't want to be seen as nerds. They just want to be seen as cool. So you didn't have any of that going up, or did you just not worry about it?
That's a really good question because look, it's really hard to walk that line and to you need friends, and I think that goes to the like the bigger message that we're building your own personal board of directors, right? So I think that the trick is to really know your audience and to understand how to communicate with different types of people, right? So I had a very different voice at home versus my voice at school. So knowing what people or how to get your message across to different people is really, I think, one of the ultimate skills that I've learned over the years. And have I made those mistakes? Of course I have. Everybody has. But to be able to go back and own it and learn from it is really one of the big things that I'd like to get across too.
That's wonderful. So you have been learning and implementing since school, high school,
No, I never thought about it that
almost,
way. But you're right.
right?
Right,
Yeah.
to
Think
learn
about
to
it.
learn how to, because I mean, look, you don't want your parents to know everything,
No.
right? So absolutely not, right? So so you're right. I was very, I would say, intentional of in my journey home from school, like to or from school, and it's almost like what is that show? Severance, where they go on the
Yes.
elevator and they totally change, and but there are a lot of problems with that too, about bringing your authentic self to work and whatever. But
Yeah.
there's a lot missing and a lot wrong with that, obviously. But to really know your audience and to find your voice and see what works and really meet people where they are to be able to communicate and to get your message across.
No, I think, I mean, that's I just love the whole process. I love the fact that, you were so cognizant, even at a young age. So no wonder you've been so successful because you picked that up real quick.
Oh, you're really kind. It wasn't easy. It wasn't that easy. It's a lot of trial and error, right? And and I'm not good at this, but you really have to be easy on yourself. And as much as you would give other people the ability to, call the mulligan, do over, okay. Just try to be kind to yourself and but
Give
also
yourself a break.
listen to other people, but when you're kind to yourself, also be true to yourself and know where that line is.
So there's the other thing that I picked up what you said was, of course you're going to make mistakes, own them. There's no point. That is another thing that I find. And of course, this is not on topic, but we are having a chat. So it's like instead of trying to, I hate being defensive. For
Yeah,
me, it's like, okay, fine, this happened. What next? Was it my fault? Maybe it was. What next, right? So I think it's a great way to look at things. And then, like you said, give yourself grace. Everybody
mhm,
makes mistakes, right? I mean, it's not a perfect world. It would be too boring if it was.
that's for sure.
So you have been with the NHL for over 24 years. And what changes and challenges, even from a technology point,
Mhm.
did you face?
Oh gosh, technology is moving so fast. Every day is something new, which makes like again, I'm so blessed to have this kind of a role that I'm not doing the same thing every day. It's it's invigorating, it makes me sharp, it keeps me motivated, and it's terrifying, by the way. But and I'll just be very transparent. Sometimes it could be very terrifying to take that leap and to actually put something into production that you've tested the heck out of, but you're still not sure because things happen. But really, it's been a very wild ride, and embracing the changes as they come rather than fighting them. And that doesn't mean that you can't voice your opinion or ask questions, because you need to ask a lot of questions. But you need to think about, just because we've always done it that way, is it really the way that we should be doing it? And also with new technology coming in, to find the common ground and to understand why you're taking those leaps, and to be really able to prepare for the future.
Yeah, because there's constant disruption going on, right?
Oh yeah, yeah,
So so now I'm sure when you're putting a new technology into production, you have really proved yourself, right? So you have built that circle of trust, and people are like, okay, Carol knows what she's doing. But when you first got in, right, and the way you mentioned it also, that they saw you work through whatever company, the vendor that you
mm,
were working with, and they really liked what they saw, and so they wanted to hire you. But still, when you are younger and not that experienced, and you are worried about losing your job, uh, you make decisions differently. Did that ever affect you?
of course it did. Of course, you really have to. There's no substitution for talking to people, to getting to understand why they're doing things the way that they're doing them, and what's important to them, what their role is, and to understand how this technology is going to affect them. It's so critical. And to to have those types of conversations, like ongoing conversations, not just, okay, we're going to talk about something and I'm going to go back in a room, shut the door. I'll come out in 6 months and give it just doesn't work that way. It never
Right.
did. Right. Well, maybe at some point even prior to my career it did, but it just can't work like that anymore. And that the whole um transfer of going from a waterfall methodology to an agile type of environment was revolutionary. And I have to say that with using that notes development, and that was a very agile process.
Mm.
So to be able to continuously develop is so important, and to bring your stakeholders in and allow them to ask questions, and also to be confident enough, or to be open enough to the feedback that they will give you, and be able to adjust things in a way that will be good for everyone.
That's true. So what would you say in your 24 years of working here, what would be some of your most notable achievements?
I would have to say most recently the NHL draft is near and dear to my heart. When I first got on was brought into the NHL, we developed this Lotus Notes based system that allowed the teams to log in and do their draft picks. So if you're not familiar with the NHL draft, we have now we have 32 teams. Each team has a table of 25 to 30 people from the front office of the team.
Mhm.
And we have the moderator, usually the commissioner, starts, and then the director, I'm sorry, vice president of central scouting takes over a little bit later. But it's really a business meeting that we conduct for teams to make their draft picks, and the top prospects are there. It's a great event. So when I first got to the league, we did all this in Lotus Notes, and 2 years ago in Nashville, we rewrote the system into a cloud-based modern architecture. And I have to say, we tested the tar out of this thing. We had so many mock drafts. We even went on site in Nashville prior to the draft with the technology and the actual laptops that the teams were going to use. And we ran through different scenarios, but nothing ever replaces that day in
Yeah.
production. So this was one of those waterfall type things in this modern world. So we had spent a year developing this thing, and it's extremely complex because of the security of it all, meaning the picks that the teams make can't be known until they're released, until they're announced. And that was a huge security factor that we really needed to embrace. But also the lists of prospects that are brought in have to be okayed by our central scouting department, by our central registry department. So there were a lot of different players involved in this. And that day when the first pick was made, then we all breathed a sigh of relief.
Yeah.
So and plus, I mean, Sanjit, it's televised, and we have millions of people watching, and to
Right.
have those awful words, we have to take a technical timeout. Oh, it would just cripple me. It would have crippled me, but everything worked great. There were some takeaways that we wanted to update for last season, which was in Vegas. at the Sphere, which was another incredible feat because of the technology in the Sphere. We had to integrate with all that. But that has to be one of the absolute highlights of my career.
I would have, I just can imagine just being so instrumental in driving that digital transformation and being successful. You probably wanted to pop open a champagne bottle along with
Oh,
others who were like,
oh, we
oh, we
did.
got this player. And you're like, oh,
Oh, we did.
I got this going.
I didn't care who was, well, I kind of cared who was picked, but
Yeah,
I didn't care specifically the prospect they chose. I just
yeah,
wanted them to be able to pick the prospect that the team wanted, not let anyone else see, and then have
right.
that through to the podium and the commissioner announcing it, us having the ability to release it, and then all of the data through the channels went out to the broadcasters, and all the feeds to .com and things like that worked. So I have to say that was probably one of the biggest.
Crowning moment. You were like,
That was,
that, I'll take that crown now.
yep,
Right.
100%. That was great.
That's true. So let's get back to that the supported, the trusted circle that you spoke about, something that you have been subconsciously, I think, doing since your school days. Tell us a little bit about, again, NHL, like a predominantly male industry, and I remember even those IBM days, I'm
Mhm.
sure there were way the proportion of women to men would have been so small. So in such predominantly male industries, what inspired you to build a trusted circle around you, and how did you even get it started?
So it wasn't like I woke up one morning and said, "Wow, I need my own personal board of directors here."
First, yeah,
So it was more of an organic growth for me personally. It was more finding those men and women, right? It doesn't mean just because I'm female doesn't mean that there aren't men on this my personal board. And
absolutely.
it's really it's building those bridges and knowing who is going to support you, but also thinking about the type of advice that they give and making sure that you're ready to get that feedback too, because that's super important, right? It's one of those I don't know who said this, but it was don't ask questions that you don't want the answers to. So, right? I mean, it's one of those little catch 22s that you can say that
Right.
you want feedback, but do you really want feedback? And are you ready for that feedback?
Yeah.
Right? To be honest with yourself and to realize that the person, and there are people that will say, Carol, it's great. It's great. Every, the way that you handle that, fantastic. And those are more the cheerleaders. But if you want to get better, you need the tougher feedback. The person to say, that was great, but let's talk about, what do you think were the tough things for you to get through? And to give you those tools of, okay, well let's talk through that, and let's ideate on things that could have gone better, or how can we make it better now? Because you can never go back in time. Once it's done, it's done. But to own it, embrace it, and move forward and say, okay, I'm owning that. I see that it could have gone better, but I'm going to make it better right now.
Right.
So what would make you happy right now to the stakeholder, or to the people around you, right? What's going to make that better? And
Yeah.
to get them to, to get them to help me or help you help them sort of thing, and engaging with them. In building that board, you have to think about, if you have something that you're trying to work through, who do you trust, and who do you think will give you that feedback that you're looking for? Because honestly, sometimes you do just need that pat on the back.
Yeah,
Right? You're
true.
not quite ready. You know what? I feel really beat up. I need the reassurance of,
Yes.
you know what? You're doing your best with the information that you had. You made the decisions. You're doing the best that you can. But let's see how we're going to make that better, or not even just to be that cheerleader. Usually when I do go to these folks, when I do go to mentors, I and on this personal board of directors, I try to be very intentional to bring a very specific ask to them and let them know in advance, if you can, if you feel comfortable, even more comfortable, to say, I really want to talk about this. Do you mind if I block out 30 minutes on your calendar? And respect those 30 minutes,
Yeah,
right? And
absolutely.
this is an evolving thing. It's not like, okay, you're set and then that's it,
Right.
right? People come in and out of your life, and you really need to adjust for that and to see who who you need and when.
Right. So, I mean, so you're so right. You need those cheerleaders. At the same time, you need the people who are very practical and will tell you, maybe you could have done this differently, maybe you could have done that differently. And I think, also a lot of times, as I think it's more with women. We tend to have this imposter syndrome, right?
Oh,
It doesn't matter how far we have come. You're like, okay, am I really worth it? So you need probably to have someone in there who knows your value,
yeah,
right? And who's there to tell you, hey, what are you talking about? Look at all this that you have accomplished, right? So um, so I see these things, but when you go about, looking for these, are you being in such a technical industry, um, is it, do you also look for people who have worked in this industry before? Does it matter?
I think it can help, but
Mhm.
business, I mean, granted, sports is very different, meaning the technology that we have and the integration of a game schedule and being so integrated with it.
Mhm.
Also dealing with unions, meaning the players union, the officiating union, dealing with partners, with vendors. It's I like to think that it's a company, but like plus these extra layers, and that's what makes it so much fun, right? But I think that you really can find a mentor or a confidant anywhere. It doesn't have to be a someone that's above you that works at your company. It could be someone that you meet at a conference,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
That you can reach out to and say, you know what, I really enjoyed what we were talking about. You mind if I put a couple minutes on your calendar? I would love to run something by you. What do you think about this? Because we all bring those very unique perspectives to the table, and
Mm.
that's why it's so important to build diverse teams, because everybody has that different voice that they can bring, and then how much stronger is your end result of that? It's just it's so much, it's so elevated to be able to think about all of those things beforehand, or to consider those different perspectives before launch, or before whatever initiative that you're trying to do. Um, it's so critical to have a lot of just diversity even in your circle, and that will definitely help you move forward as well. Because if you stick within just your company, you're getting a very isolated point of view.
Yep,
And
there.
those folks, especially if you engage with folks in your own department. So not only are you in your company, but you're in your own department. It's I think that you're missing out.
Yeah, it becomes really provincial then at some
Yes.
point. Yep,
Yes.
yep.
So I have to say, I love my marketer friends. The woman that served with me as co-president of the Women ERG, her name is Nicole Lee. And her and I built this incredible relationship of not only building the ERG, where we got in there as the first co-presidents, but also just personally. And I've learned so much from working with her in a marketing type of light. It's been incredible, and it's taught me so many different things. It's really been a fantastic experience. So I would say it helps to diversify
Oh,
for
for
sure.
sure. So I know we are getting real close to getting close to the final minutes of this. So I want to ask you one last question, and there are already questions coming in from people.
Right.
So one last question here is, what's the one key takeaway you hope that the audience today will remember about creating and developing your personal board of directors, your trusted circle?
I would say let it happen organically,
Mhm.
but also be intentional. So I know
Mm.
that's kind of those two kind of clash, but um if you kind of let it happen with a relationship that you're building, because that's really what you're doing, is you're building that bridge with someone else and discovering not only what they might be able to bring to your table, but what you might be able to bring to theirs.
Right.
So be cognizant of that. It's not just a pull, it's a push-pull
Of course.
relationship, right? And but also to be very intentional, right? When you ask very, very open-ended questions, it's difficult for someone to respond to that, because there's so many different factors that weigh in, like, well, what's my next move? Like, what's my next career? How the heck am I supposed to know that?
All right.
But if you say something like, I really want to get involved in cybersecurity, it interests me. It's a hot topic right now. I think I can add a lot of value because I've done some research and I've found that these particular things are super, super interesting to me. Can you introduce me to this person, because I noticed you have a relationship with them?
Mhm.
See how specific that was? It
Yeah,
was, I'm
absolutely.
coming in, I did my homework, I'm I've communicated what I'm interested in. I've taken a few classes, or I've done a little bit of research. I found where I want to focus on, or at least that I want to learn more about.
Mhm.
I've already taken some steps before I've come to you for a specific ask, right?
Right, right,
And then it's a lot easier for me to make that connection,
right.
or to suggest maybe not that person, but I have someone else in mind. Give me a day or two, and I'm going to talk to that person and see if they're open to an introduction,
Yeah.
right? So it's letting it happen organic, like that, letting that relationship build organically, but then also being specific, coming in, doing your homework, and
Right.
being able to ask something that's tangible.
Right, right. Fabulous. Well, thank you so much. Hold on for 1 second for
Sure.
me while I get this first question. Any difficult feedback that you have heard from your personal board of directors? What was the most impactful or surprising thing that your personal board of directors spoke to you about?
I think it probably had to do with a project or something, and having them kind of tell me maybe something that I really didn't want to do, right? To say, you need to go talk to that person. And I'm like, oh, what? Really? Come on. But then, coming back to say, well, can you help me build that narrative of how can I approach this?
Yes.
Because it's an awkward conversation and I have to have it, but how do I do it? And oh my God, please stop with the email and the Slack for conversations like this, just in general, right?
So
If
true. I
if a
agree with
Slack,
you
if a Slack
completely.
is right, I mean, if a Slack is going over like two sentences, pick up the phone. Like we have phones still, or go
Yeah.
talk to the person if you can, or get on a Zoom. Like then you can read the body language and you can adjust your tone, and then you can correct if the person is not understanding really what you're trying to say, and you can correct it right then and there,
Right.
right? It's
Especially
not
with yeah. Especially, and I'm so with you on this because if there are difficult conversations, or even sometimes like the silliest of things, right? Someone sends you an email and you don't like it, and you
Mhm.
wonder whether they really meant to write it that way or it's just coming
Yes,
across that way. And now you're upset, so you are responding to it, and it just kind of snowballs. Instead, if this was a conversation, you would know that the person did not mean to slight you at all, that was
yes,
just a comment, for example.
yes,
So that is one thing that I'm totally with you on. It's just like, I know we are all busy, but let's make sure, So let's
yes,
see if there's any more over here. Ah, yes. Sanjay writes, hi, Carol. Thanks for touching on the cultural issue in the workplace. I'm sure NHL is particularly challenging place just because the history and nature of the sports makes it demographically skewed, mostly men players and even the viewers, I guess. In that context, how do you build a more diverse technology team that is absolutely needed for the 21st century, just like you mentioned, especially with transformational initiatives like the digital draft at the sphere that you talked about? I guess Sanjay follows NHL, so he
oh
knows
great.
all about
No, I love
it.
it, I love it. So we currently have our partners that we deal with have very diverse teams. Our one partner that we deal with a tremendous amount has they are actually from all over the world, right? They're from Belarus, but then they had to move because of the war in Ukraine, and they're really scattered through Europe right now. Also another vendor that we work with, and they're men and women. It's a fantastic team, and they do bring a lot of different perspectives to the table. I love it. And another vendor that we work with has teams in India. And you know what? A funny story that I want to just caveat with this. We were recently on a call. We were talking about a different project, and I was in Buffalo, New York for the officiating training camp. I needed to speak to the officials about some new technology. and I made a comment about buffalo wings. So that Buffalo, New York is storied as the original buffalo wing, and there's
Yep.
this
Yep.
big Anchor Bar or Duff's, like who's better, or they're at war, who went first, or whatever the
Right.
case. But I made a mention, and I was like, I said that my colleague from the vendor and I went out, and of course I wore white pants, and I was eating buffalo wings,
Of
and
course.
that wasn't very smart. But I realized that I was on this call, and I said, "Holy cow, do you all know what I'm talking about? Do you know what a buffalo wing is?" And they all looked, they were like, "No, we have no idea." So it was a great way to to build that connection, and not to assume that they are, that from like intertwined with our culture. And for instance, one of the gentlemen that I deal with a lot at our vendor in Slovakia, I believe, he was in for all of last week. He was in our office in New York City, and he said, "Okay, Carol, I have to ask, what is happy hour?" He said,
Ah.
"I see it all over." He said, "What is happy hour?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even think that you wouldn't know what that was." So when I said it's this running theme that bars have specials, and it starts at 5 o'clock, and it usually goes to like 7 or 8, but some bars do it during the day, but usually they have some drink specials. And the big joke is, well, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, so you can have
Yeah.
happy hour, you can drink all day if you want to, or whatever. But
Right.
I didn't even it didn't even cross my mind that he wouldn't have known that happy hour would have
Yeah.
been um
That's true.
right. Like, so, like, I don't even know what that is. So I think just to, to build those diverse teams, and to really lean into um really meeting people where they are, and realizing that everyone has a gift to give, and to give them the environment that they feel comfortable, they have that psychological safety, they can bring themselves to work, and bring their perspectives, just makes for such a stronger product and a stronger end result. It's just incredible.
It is so true. Kristen, you have met Kristen. She
Sure.
makes a great effort to, if there's any kind of celebration, be it from India, we have teams in Mexico,
Nice.
then she makes it a point to, have us all in the office, or if we are not all local, then, connected, and then talk about, because there are so many things. We think we know everything about Mexico, and we don't, So,
No way.
I mean, there's so many things. For example, I took some friends to visit India, and I warned them that, when you will be in the streets of India, people will be staring at you, but it is a normal thing. Don't feel offended,
Sure.
So it's just every culture has its own, way of doing things. So it's really good to know about all of them. Okay, so a couple more questions. What has been the most valuable advice you have received from your personal board of directors that may have maybe changed the course of what you were doing, of your career, of your life? I mean, I know I
Sure.
have my personal board of directors personally also in my, circle of friends,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I credit them with my marriage having lasted so long. I mean, seriously, sometimes.
Um, I would say that part of it revolves, and I'm not sure if they actually said these words to me, but it's not all about you. So there have been many situations. We're all human. And to your point earlier about, reading an email and taking it the wrong way, or assuming the author meant certain things when they might not have, or what, like, not getting that true meaning out of what they were trying to say. to take a step back and to appreciate that it it it's not all about you. Meaning, if you get that email and you have that history with a certain person or a certain department or something, to be able to step out, like step away from it almost in your own mind and reread it in a sense, or get that feedback as, okay, they're not trying to harm me. They're not trying to um steer me down the wrong path. Like, reread the things in that kind of a light. I'm not sure if I'm making sense, but it's
You know,
called
you're making total sense.
it's
Yeah.
called, I think the term for it is cognitive behavioral therapy.
Mm.
And it's re reevaluating a situation by taking the history out of it, just taking it for what it is, like the
For
situation
face
for what it
value. Yeah.
is, and addressing it that way,
Yeah.
rather than like Sanjit, you were saying before, like that knee-jerk reaction to an email.
Right.
Right. It brought me way back to my kids oddly played hockey, played youth hockey. And
Okay.
it's just weird how that worked out, but loved every second of it. Just it was a fantastic experience. One of the coaches had the 24-hour rule. So, of course, when you go to these games, you're watching your son or daughter intently, and you're very critical of everyone else, of what they're saying or how much ice time they have or how they're being treated or whatever. And he said, if you have a problem, you have to wait. My rule is you have to wait 24 hours. And if you still feel that way after 24 hours, then we can talk about it. Right. So it was kind of, in a way, it was forcing, I'll just speak for myself. It was forcing me to take a new look at it,
Yeah.
sleep on it, come back, think about it again. And a lot of times I had a very different perspective when I did
Yeah.
that. So
Because
the
you're taking
whole
the
it's
emotion out of it. Yeah.
yeah, right. It's not
Yeah.
it's not all about me. Like, it's not just he's singling out my son and he's benching him or
Right.
whatever. Right. It's just not the case most of the time.
Sure. Sure. We're getting real close to finish time here. So I have two more questions that I'm going to ask you. So she wanted to know that have you used technology for service areas as well in NHL, such as like player safety?
Oh, for sure. So
Okay.
we recently, within the last 5 years, we um revamped how our one of our player safety groups watch it, not how they watch the game, but how they log incidents of interest, and how all of those are cataloged, and how notifications are sent out and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So it's our really all of our service units has to have some pieces of technology running their day to day, because the last thing we want to do is have people, you know coordinating their business over email. Things gets lost. People thankfully go on vacation sometimes. And it's tricky, right?
Yeah.
There's just too much. So putting that into a more normalized database, or a more normalized way of doing things, is really the bread and butter of what we do. So we not only support the game, like game day facilities, but we also support our service units and streamlining their business processes, and partnering with them to make sure that they're getting what they need and when.
Right. Last question. Susie says you mentioned that technology is advancing rapidly, which can be both terrifying and exciting. After 24 years with the NHL, especially leading during the pandemic with so many uncertainties, how did you manage the stress of navigating such challenges and develop new strategies for a completely new way of working?
That is a really great question. So I would go back to communication, really checking in every day with both my team, but with other folks. And when you when when you ask how someone is, if you feel like they need or want to talk, give them the space to talk, because you might be that person that they need that day. So minus the um I don't know, redoing our identity management system, or reimagining the draft system, or making sure the statistics get to .com or whatever, right? Building that relationship with your teammates and being there for them is one of the greatest high points of really my contributions to the NHL. So my work with the women ERG, when we had um an author, we did a fireside chat with an author that wrote a book about her journey taking care of her dying father, right? Yeah, I'm going to try not to get upset here. But someone reached out to me and they said, I needed that today. Enough said, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's affecting people on a different level. And I feel so privileged that that person felt comfortable enough to share that with me. It was
Yeah.
just that really hit home. So it's just
Sure.
fantastic.
It's really important not to just judge people on what they're doing because you
Yeah,
never know what's going on behind the scenes.
sure,
So, and any such a simple hello could change a person's
sure.
life. So,
Absolutely.
well, thank you very much. This was so
Sure.
exciting. So much information, so much to learn, so many points that I have put in, and it doesn't matter. I mean, again, I have been on this earth a very long time and I have learned a lot of things, but every single time that I'm speaking to someone like you, I feel like I learned something new, something that I can take away and make my life and maybe the life of people around me better. So thank you so much for taking the time. Really, really appreciate it. And I really hope to meet up in person soon.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. Thank
yeah,
you. It
let's
was a
do it.
privilege.